do you think, how many more kids who are interested in science, technology, math, engineering, how many more of them would be able to succeed if they had housing for all, healthcare for all, universally able to all get education without having a paywall, a price barrier to it? Imagine how many more engineers we would have if those weren't barriers to them. It's not just cultural. See, the material conditions feed the culture. I'm going to repeat that. The material conditions feed the culture. So therefore, you would need to change the material conditions, because we were able to change the material conditions. Imagine how many more children we will be able to have in these industries if we didn't paywall the ability to live. What I want to read from Vivek Ramaswamy, I want to address this too. I think this is really interesting. So Vivek Ramaswamy, there's been a discussion about immigration and bringing people in from other countries who are qualified. And this is what Vivek Ramaswamy says. It says, the reason top-notch companies often hire foreign-born and first-generation engineers over Native Americans, not native-born Americans, I think he means to say, isn't because of an innate American IQ deficit, a lazy and wrong explanation. A key part of it comes down to the C word, culture. Tough questions demand tough answers, and if we're really serious about fixing the problem, we have to confront the truth. Our American culture has venerated mediocrity over excellence for way too long, at least since the 90s and likely longer. That doesn't start in college, it starts young. It says a culture that celebrates prom queen over the math Olympiad champ or the jock over the valedictorian will not produce the best engineers. Here's my thing. He has a point, but it's not the point, right? Because ultimately, here's where the issue lies. We have a culture, we have a system where compliance is the name of the game and who runs our education system. See, here's the part where Vivek Ramaswamy actually misses, is that he doesn't realize that the capitalists are the ones that influence our government, that wield our government like a hammer, right? Because government's a tool. It is not, see, it's just like guns don't kill people, people kill people. Hammers can be used to destroy, or hammers can be used to build, right? It is a tool. When you have the capitalists that actually own and run our government, they're going to run it so that it benefits them. They need schools to be a center of compliance. They need schools to be a center of mediocrity to keep us within a certain realm so that we don't figure out that they're playing us. So they need us to be dumbed down in so many ways so that we can continue to keep being good little workers for them. This is why schools are set up the way they are. And so that's part of the culture. The culture that feeds it is capitalism. But people like Vivek Ramaswamy, who have a net worth of over $1 billion, does not want to address that. So he's going to say, well, we just need to focus more on STEM and blah, blah, blah. But in reality, it's the capitalist structure that actually feeds into our education system, which keeps us as compliant little workers. That's the problem. And on top of that, bread and circuses is the name of the game also to keep us within that system. So this is why we have the jock and the prom queen and things like that, because it's bread and circuses. It has to keep us acclimated to that. But because Vivek Ramaswamy is not a worker and he does not have the type of examination and thought process that sifts through what the capitalist system does, he's not going to tell you that because he's coming at it from a capitalist perspective. Let's continue reading. So he says, a culture that venerates Corey from Boy Meets World, or Zack and Slater from Screech from Saved by the Bell, or Stefan, over Steve Urkel in Family Matters will not produce the best engineers. In fact, I know multiple sets of immigrant parents in the 90s who actively limited how much their kids could watch those TV shows precisely because they promoted mediocrity. And their kids went on to become wildly successful STEM graduates. Here's the thing. I'm going to say this, and I mean this in the best way possible. Capitalism promotes mediocrity because it promotes mediocrity, because it does not want anybody to figure out that the system is rigged so that it keeps the system in place. This is the same system that made it illegal for my ancestors to read and write. That is the promotion of mediocrity. But Vivek does not have the wherewithal to figure that out. Truth, there are some educated fools that come out of these universities. You want to know which ones there are? Capitalism promotes mediocrity. This is why sometimes the best person for the job may not be a cisgendered heterosexual white man. It may be somebody that looks like me, but because I look like me, it has to push me to the side, because then I can promote a system outside of capitalism which will endanger it and make room for a new system. So it needs to keep mediocrity in place in order to maintain its power. This is the issue with the system. Capitalism will never innovate if it is not profitable. That's why it needs mediocrity to keep things the way it is. This is why we still have things like a fossil fuel industry, because it needs mediocrity in order to stay. Because if going green is not profitable, even though it is way better than what we have, it is going to say no, because it's not profitable. It needs mediocrity to stay in order to continue to keep making more profits. Yes, capitalism sucks. But he doesn't want to let you know that because he's a capitalist. And so he's trying to say, well, we just need to immigrate more people, or we need to stop the mediocrity. But at the same time, he's not willing to get rid of the system that promotes the mediocrity in the first place. He's trying to put a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. That's the problem. See, that's the problem with a lot of people like Vivek Ramaswamy, is that he doesn't want to address the underlying issues. He just wants to put a Band-Aid on the problem. Because if you actually attack the underlying issues, there are people who are smarter and more proficient and more effective than Vivek Ramaswamy. And then that threatens his power. All right, so he says more movies like Whiplash, fewer reruns of Friends, more math tutoring, fewer sleepovers, more weekend science at competitions, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV, more creating, less chilling, more extracurriculars, less hanging out at the mall. But here's the issue. This is a part of capitalism. Why? Because it pushes this mediocrity. It pushes consumerism. Look, fewer Saturday morning cartoons, more books, less TV. That means that you would literally look. Hang on. Let me ask y'all this question. When a socialist government comes in place, what is the one thing that usually not usually, always rises as soon as a socialist government comes into power. Literacy goes up. Why? Because it's a system that does not accept mediocrity. I don't accept mediocrity. That's why I'm a communist. Because mediocrity will be the death of human existence. And yet he wants to keep the system in place that keeps us mediocre, but then he cries about mediocrity. Don't get mad, get glad. Listen, this is the issue. Stop trying to cry about having a muddy sweater when you keep playing in the mud. Get out of the mud, Vivek. And then your sweater or your shirt won't be muddy anymore. But you got to stop playing in the mud in order to not have dirt on that on that shirt. But you keep doing it. And you keep complaining, well, maybe if we played this way, or maybe if we played that way, it's still going to happen. My God. Mind you guys, Vivek is only a year younger than me. This man got a college education, got a master's degree. He's a valedictorian. He can't figure this shit out. Come on now. All right, let's continue. Most normal American parents look skeptically at those kinds of parents. More normal American kids view those kinds of kids with scorn. If you grow up aspiring to normalcy, normalcy is what you will achieve. Right? He says, now close your eyes and visualize which families you knew in the 90s or even now who raised their kids according to one model versus another. Be brutally honest. Normalcy doesn't cut it in a hyper-competitive global market for technical talent. And if we pretend like it does, we'll have our asses handed to us by China. Here's the thing. Why is China beating our asses, though? What type of economic system does China have that allows for them to go beyond the abilities, go beyond the concept of mediocrity? What are they doing? Vivek? Are they completely capitalist and just having less mediocrity? Their culture fed into having a system that walks away from capitalist exploitation. Now, I will say that they're kind of a hybrid because they do have also some capitalist markets, but it is being overseen by state apparatuses and a communist party. I get that, right? But largely, China is a socialist country. And therefore, they're using the capitalism to build themselves up in that way, but they're also gradually walking away from capitalism as well. But the thing is that they are using their ideas, which build up the entire working class away from mediocrity. Because here's the thing. Do you think how many more kids who are interested in science, technology, math, engineering, how many more of them would be able to succeed if they had housing for all, healthcare for all, universally able to all get education without having a paywall, a price barrier to it? Imagine how many more engineers we would have if those weren't barriers to them. It's not just cultural. See, The material conditions feed the culture. I'm going to repeat that. The material conditions feed the culture. So therefore, you would need to change the material conditions because we were able to change the material conditions. Imagine how many more children we will be able to have in these industries if we didn't paywall the ability to live. And yet, he still doesn't come to that conclusion yet. That means that, I'm going to be honest with you, the $1 billion that net worth that he has, that's a waste of money. That is a waste of $1 billion because here he is saying all this, circling around the answer, and I can point the answer to you right there. Give me that $1 billion. I'll use mutual aid and I'll actually build up the community with it instead of cheating people out of their hard-earned money, in the pharmaceutical sector. This is the guy that says that he wants to head the Department of Government Efficiency, and yet he can't figure out how to efficiently help create a system that will actually be conducive for us to compete on the world stage. And yet I, without a college education, just did it for you. Valedictorian? No, I was a C student, baby. See, this is the thing. Realize just because they went to college doesn't mean they're the smartest person in the room, because there's a lot of educated fools out there. Let's continue. This is my first time reading this. I have not read this before. He says, this can be our Sputnik moment. Wait. He's right there. Right there. This is our Sputnik moment. People, Sputnik was a satellite that was created by the Soviets. It was revolutionary for its time. It was technological innovation at its time, created by socialists. You want to talk about irony? It's ironic that he's like, we can have our Sputnik moment. Yeah, if you have a system where people are no longer exploited, that's how you get it. But you still continue to perpetuate an exploitative system, Vivek. Therefore, you're not going to have a Sputnik moment in a capitalist system. It's never going to happen. Think, Vivek, think. Use that big brain of yours and actually come to the conclusion that you're not going to do it in a capitalist system, because guess what, chicken butt? That's not how you go about it. Because they literally had a different economic system that addressed the literacy, right? Because literacy rates jumped when after the October Revolution. Literacy rates jumped during after the Chinese Revolution. Literacy rates jumped when Venezuela started going towards socialism. Literacy rates jumped when Cuba had their revolution. Why? Because socialists actually value smart people. We don't want you to just be a compliant worker. We want you to be better than the last generation. I want Vivek to sit with that. This will be our Sputnik moment. You got to change the system in order to be able to have that, Vivek. My God. How much did you spend on your college education? He says, we've awakened from slumber before and we can do it again. Trump's election hopefully marks the beginning of a new golden era in America, but only if our culture fully wakes up, a culture that once again prioritizes achievement over normalcy, excellence over mediocrity, nerdiness over conformity, hard work over laziness. Here's the problem, though. The only reason why that mediocrity was put to the side was because the United States was actually trying to compete with communism in order to win the space race. But once we won the space race, what did we do? Did we continue it? What happened with the Soviet Union fell? Did we actually really truly continue exploration and STEM like we did before? No. Why? Because it wasn't profitable to do so. It's only pushed because of profit. And once it's no longer profitable to do so, then we just leave it by the wayside, which means that we continue in mediocrity. That's the problem with capitalism. He says, that's the work we have cut out for us. Rather than wallowing in victimhood and just wishing or legislating alternative hiring practices into existence, I'm confident we can do it. He's basically saying that Americans basically have a terrible culture, and these countries are able to do this. And that's why we're bringing them in. They're immigrants in to do the job that Americans think that we should be doing. But the problem is you also got to remember, post World War II, which I'm thinking that he is referring to, when we started ramping up on a lot of innovation, was out of the necessity for profit, also out of the necessity for war and the threat of socialism was looming over the heads of the captains of industry, because they didn't want us to realize that we could have something better. So they acquiesced and gave us a few more crumbs just so that we wouldn't ask for more. So that we wouldn't look at countries like the Soviet Union and go, hey, they're doing so much better than us. So they said, all right. We'll give you guys the New Deal. We'll give you guys FHA loans. We'll give you guys, tuition-free college or very low-cost college. We'll give you guys GI Bills. We'll give you all this stuff. Go ahead and go out into the suburbs and then live your life, really nicely for the next 30 years. But we're taking it back. And that's exactly what they did. And guess what? The mediocrity, as soon as they started taking it back, the mediocrity shot up. And then the achievements started going down. Because capitalism, that's the way it works. My goodness. Said the Woodstock this person says the Woodstock generation managed to build aerospace. The one before we went to the moon, America was doing great. Underlying your post that we are all living in squalor until being rescued by HB1s, then why did everyone want to come here? That Woodstock generation was born out of a necessity to compete with a better economic system. And so that's why. It was out in that necessity. It was also built out of a necessity for a war economy. That's why it was there. It wasn't out of a necessity for us to better ourselves. It was built out of necessity for profit. But then once, we no longer have another country to compete with that is actually doing better, now it's profit driven. That drive for profit, it stagnates us. Vivek says that version of America, the one that used to embody unbridled exceptionalism, is exactly what we want to return to. That is a point about culture, not immigration policy. But the problem is that that return to it means that you actually have to acquiesce more power to the workers, acquiesce more power to the material conditions, to the proletariat, in order to achieve that. The problem is that the greed of the capitalists are resistant to that. So therefore, the mediocrity will return. The mediocrity will stay, actually. That's what it is. But Vivek just doesn't get it. Sad. Anywho. Thank you so very much for watching my channel, and I deeply appreciate it from the top and bottom of my heart. If you wish to support the channel further, so I can keep bringing you content that is educational and informative, you can become a patron on patreon.com/Jaybefaunt. You can find that link in the pinned comment or in the description below. No matter what you give, you'll be supporting independent media and education that helps make the world better. Thank you so much, and you can watch more of my content here. Mwah. Forehead kisses, and have a beautiful day.